The Galactic Empire spanned the stars like an ancient colossus, ruling with an iron grip honed over millennia. Its subjects, countless species across thousands of systems, obeyed out of fear or submission. Humanity, a relatively new entrant to the galactic stage, had spent decades carefully preparing to join this interstellar order. Earth's leaders, cautious yet hopeful, believed diplomacy could secure their place among the stars. Ambassador Caroline Holt embodied humanity's aspirations. Chosen for her steadfast resolve and eloquence, she carried the weight of Earth's dreams on her shoulders. Her mission was one of peace, negotiating humanity's first formal alliance, securing trade rights, and proving Earth's value as a partner, not a subordinate. The stakes were monumental, yet her confidence remained unshaken as she stepped into the Imperial Council's gilded halls on Terrazin Prime. The capital of the Empire was a marvel of alien engineering. Spires that pierced the atmosphere, cities suspended in orbit, and skies filled with a constant flow of starships. The grandeur was matched only by the arrogance of its rulers. Imperial delegates, towering and resplendent in their ceremonial garb, dismissed Holt's presence as a novelty. The murmurs began even before she spoke. A collective judgment passed before her first words left her lips. Her opening address was met with cold indifference. She spoke of Earth's achievements, its capacity for innovation, and its vision for mutual growth. But the delegates' reactions ranged from condescending smirks to outright mockery. For the Empire, humanity's value was limited to raw resources and potential servitude. Holt's resolve hardened as the meeting progressed. She confronted the Empire's dismissive attitude, challenging their assumptions with facts and reason. But her defiance only deepened their disdain. The Supreme Sovereign himself, seated on a throne of light and shadow, leaned forward, his 6 eyes gleaming with malice. He declared humanity's audacity an insult to the Empire's authority. A sudden silence fell over the chamber as he pronounced his sentence. Holt would die, her execution broadcast to every corner of the galaxy. It was a demonstration of the Empire's absolute power, a warning to any species that dared to stand as equals. Bound and dragged to the execution pyre, Holt's calm facade never faltered. She met the Sovereign's gaze one final time, her voice steady as she declared, "This act will not break us. Humanity will rise from these flames." Her words, carried on the broadcast, resonated deeply with those watching from Earth. As the fire consumed her, Earth's people were united in grief and fury. The outrage ignited a resolve more powerful than any treaty could have achieved. Governments and factions set aside their differences, pooling their resources and expertise. The message was clear. The Empire had declared war not on an individual, but on all of humanity. The fire that took Holt's life did not extinguish her mission. Instead, it became a symbol of defiance, a rallying cry for a species that would not bow, would not break, and would not forget. The broadcast of Ambassador Holt's execution sent shockwaves through humanity, a shared trauma that transcended borders and ideologies. In an instant, centuries of division melted away, replaced by an unshakable unity. Leaders across Earth convened in an emergency council, their faces grim but resolute. The message was unanimous. The Empire had declared war on humanity, and humanity would answer. The mobilization was unprecedented in its speed and scale. Civilian industries shifted overnight into war production, and research facilities diverted all efforts to military innovation. Scientists, engineers, and tacticians worked tirelessly to push human ingenuity to its limits. Humanity's inherent adaptability and creativity became its greatest assets. Within months, Earth's first fleet of interstellar warships emerged from orbital shipyards, their sleek designs bristling with experimental technologies. The Empire, accustomed to crushing resistance with overwhelming force, dismissed humanity's preparations as futile. They saw Earth's actions as the desperate flailing of a species that could not possibly match the might of the galaxy's oldest civilization. But they underestimated humanity's resourcefulness. Human tacticians devised strategies that defied conventional logic. Where the Empire relied on sheer numbers and brute strength, humanity leaned into asymmetric warfare. Advanced drones, stealth ships, and AI-driven strategies allowed small human fleets to outmaneuver and outthink the Empire's massive armadas. They targeted supply lines, sabotaged key infrastructure, and disrupted communication networks, forcing the Empire to stretch its forces thin across its sprawling territory. The psychological warfare was equally effective. Humanity used the same galactic broadcast channels that had shown Holt's execution to send messages of defiance. Footage of daring raids and victorious skirmishes spread like wildfire, turning humanity from a footnote into a symbol of rebellion. Species subjugated by the Empire began to watch these broadcasts with growing interest, and in some cases, quiet admiration. The cost of war was steep, but humanity's resolve only deepened with each loss. Families grieved their loved ones, but channeled their pain into action. Volunteers flooded recruitment centers, eager to contribute in any way they could. On the front lines, soldiers fought with a ferocity born of righteous anger. In laboratories and factories, workers pushed themselves beyond exhaustion, driven by a shared purpose that no empire could extinguish. Even in the face of overwhelming odds, humanity refused to falter. They learned from every battle, adapting and improving at a pace that bewildered their enemies. What the Empire saw as recklessness was, in truth, a testament to humanity's resilience. They were not fighting for conquest or power. They were fighting for survival, for justice, and for the memory of a diplomat whose courage had sparked a fire that could not be extinguished. As the war escalated, the Empire began to sense that this would not be a quick victory. What had seemed like an insignificant species now stood as a formidable adversary. And for humanity, the fight was no longer just about revenge. It was about proving that even in the darkest of times, they could stand unyielding against the greatest of tyrannies. The first battles were brutal, yet humanity fought with a ferocity that caught the Empire off guard. Small, agile human ships darted between the massive Imperial cruisers, exploiting gaps in their rigid formations. On the ground, human soldiers utilized guerrilla tactics, turning planetary terrain into weapons against the Empire's mechanized legions. Victory came in flashes, brief but undeniable. Each triumph sent ripples of disbelief through the Empire and sparks of hope through humanity. The Empire responded with overwhelming force, deploying fleets so vast they darkened the skies of entire worlds. Entire planets burned under their onslaught, leaving millions dead or displaced. Yet humanity's resilience remained unbroken. Where others might have surrendered, humans only dug deeper, striking back with an ingenuity that defied the Empire's expectations. Supply depots exploded without warning. Shipyards were infiltrated and destroyed, and Imperial communications were intercepted, manipulated, and weaponized. Humanity's understanding of the Empire's arrogance became a weapon in itself. The Empire relied on predictable strategies, assuming their technological superiority would ensure swift domination. Humanity exploited this rigidity, crafting countermeasures that turned the Empire's strengths into vulnerabilities. They developed kinetic weapons capable of piercing Imperial shielding, drones that outmaneuvered their AI-controlled fighters, and sabotage techniques that left entire fleets adrift. The war escalated to a scale that shook the galaxy. Planets once bustling with life became battlefields, their surfaces scarred by endless conflict. Space itself became a graveyard of shattered ships, drifting endlessly as silent monuments to the bloodshed. Despite the devastation, humanity's resolve only deepened. Soldiers fought not for glory, but for survival, for the memory of Ambassador Holt, and for the future of their people. The Empire, unaccustomed to prolonged resistance, began to falter. The cracks in their seemingly invincible facade widened as resources stretched thin and morale dwindled. For the first time in centuries, they faced an enemy they could not easily crush. Humanity's persistence sowed seeds of dissent within the Empire itself. Disillusioned factions began questioning the leadership of the Supreme Sovereign, whose obsession with punishing humanity had led to an unrelenting war. Yet, as humanity gained ground, the lines between heroism and brutality blurred. Desperation drove them to adopt tactics that made even their own leaders uneasy. Entire planetary ecosystems were destroyed to deny the Empire resources. Civilian targets, once deemed off-limits, became collateral damage in strategic strikes. The war was reshaping humanity, forging them into something harder, colder, and unrelenting. Each victory came at a cost. Soldiers returned from the front lines scarred in ways that went beyond the physical. Families mourned not just the dead, but the humanity lost in those who survived. Still, the war continued, fueled by a fire that could not be quenched. The memory of Holt's execution remained at the heart of every battle cry, a reminder of the price of submission and the cost of freedom. As the galaxy watched in horror and awe, one truth became clear. This war was no longer about humanity's survival alone. It was about breaking the chains of tyranny, proving that even the smallest spark could ignite a flame powerful enough to consume an empire. Decades passed, and the war showed no signs of ending. The Empire's vast resources, once thought inexhaustible, had dwindled under the relentless assault of humanity. Entire sectors of imperial space lay in ruins, abandoned by a government too overextended to maintain control. Yet humanity had also transformed, reshaped by the unrelenting grind of conflict. What began as a fight for justice had evolved into a way of life, a perpetual war that defined an entire generation. Earth itself had become a fortress. Orbital defenses bristled with weaponry, and its surface was a hive of industrial and military activity. Cities had been rebuilt as bastions of resilience, their inhabitants accustomed to the ever-present threat of annihilation. Children grew up with stories of Ambassador Holt's sacrifice, learning from an early age that survival demanded vigilance and sacrifice. Humanity no longer feared the Empire. They had learned to thrive in the shadow of its oppression. On the galactic stage, humanity's transformation into a formidable force was undeniable. Their fleets, now numbering in the thousands, rivaled those of the Empire. Advances in technology had leveled the playing field, and human ingenuity continued to push the boundaries of what was possible. They had become masters of adaptation, turning every setback into an opportunity. But this progress came with a cost. The lines between defense and aggression blurred, and humanity's actions often mirrored the very cruelty they had sworn to oppose. The Empire, once arrogant and unchallenged, had become a shadow of its former self. Its leadership fractured under the weight of endless war, with dissent brewing among its once loyal subjects. Entire species that had long been subjugated now viewed humanity as a symbol of rebellion. Some joined the fight, emboldened by humanity's defiance. Others watched from the sidelines, waiting to see if the Empire would finally fall. Despite the mounting victories, peace was a concept that seemed increasingly out of reach. For humanity, the war was no longer just about defeating the Empire. It had become the very fabric of their identity. Every innovation, every cultural shift, every aspect of life revolved around the conflict. Art depicted scenes of battle, songs told of heroic sacrifices, and the memory of Holt's execution remained a rallying cry. There were moments of reflection, whispers of doubt among those who remembered a time before the war. Could humanity ever return to what it once was, or had the fire of vengeance consumed them completely? These questions, however, were drowned out by the drumbeat of war, the ceaseless call to arms that had become their existence. In the ruins of the Empire's capital, where the sovereign's throne once stood, humanity planted a flag, not as conquerors, but as a declaration. They would not bow, they would not forget, and they would not stop. The galaxy now knew the truth. Humanity was a force that could not be extinguished. What had begun as a fight for survival had become an unyielding quest for justice, a legacy of fire that burned brighter with every passing year.